Okay, so ready to dive deep.
Let's do it.
Today, we're going to tackle something that I think a lot of us uh, think about a lot.
Mm.
God's purpose for our lives.
Uh-huh. Big topic.
Huge, huge topic.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at some excerpts from Understanding God's Purpose for Your Life. I was reading through this and
Interesting stuff.
really interesting stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even for somebody who, I consider myself pretty knowledgeable in this topic,
Right.
there was some stuff that even had me thinking like, oh, wow.
Uh-huh.
So we're going to start with a very familiar passage, Jeremiah 29:01.
Okay.
But before we actually read the passage, let's talk a little bit about, like I said, this is a very familiar passage.
Mhm.
A lot of people have heard this. It's often quoted.
Right.
But how often do people really think about the context?
Yeah. That's so important, like where it comes from, who was it written to, why.
Exactly. Exactly. So can you kind of give us a little background on Jeremiah 29:11?
Yeah, absolutely. So this verse, it's often quoted as like a feel-good promise, like God's got this awesome plan for your life, everything's going to be great. But when you look at the actual context, it hits a lot different. Like you were saying, it was written by the prophet Jeremiah to the Israelites who were exiled in Babylon. So these people are far from home, their city's been destroyed, they're living in a foreign land.
Talk about feeling lost.
Exactly. They're feeling lost, abandoned, probably wondering if God's even with them anymore. And that's when this message comes in.
So if we're thinking about it in that context, in the context of what these people were going through,
Right.
what does that mean when we read, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future."
Well, it definitely adds another layer to it, doesn't it? It's not just a blanket statement for everyone at any time. It's a very specific message of comfort and hope for people who are going through a really tough time. It's like God saying, hey, I know things look bleak right now, but I haven't forgotten about you. I still have a plan for your life, and it's a good plan, one that ultimately leads to hope and a future.
That's really powerful.
Yeah.
So I guess for us, it's important to remember that, it's not just when everything's going great that God has a plan for
That's
us.
right. Exactly.
It's when things are falling apart,
Yeah.
when we feel lost,
Mm-hmm.
uncertain, maybe even abandoned.
It's in those moments, those really dark times, that this verse can be the most powerful. It's a reminder that even when we can't see it, God's still working and there's still a purpose to our lives.
That's really good. So let's get into this idea of Kingdom SoulFuel.
Okay.
Because that was another thing that, I read that and I thought, okay, what is this? Like, is this just a trendy phrase? Is this, something, another self-help kind of
Right.
buzzword? But the more I read into it, the more I was like, okay, there's something here.
Yeah, there's definitely more to it than meets the eye. It's not just another self-help cliche. It's really about connecting with something bigger than yourself, something that gives you a sense of meaning and purpose that goes beyond your own individual needs and desires.
So it's not just about like, finding your passion or, the things that make you happy.
It's definitely not about just chasing happiness or success in a worldly sense. It's about aligning your life with a purpose that's rooted in something much deeper, something that connects you to a sense of the sacred, to God, to the divine, however you understand that.
Okay, so I like that. So it's less about what do I want to do with my life? And it's more about how can my life be part of something bigger, something meaningful.
Exactly. It's about asking yourself, what is God calling me to do? How can I use my gifts and talents to serve a purpose that's greater than myself?
And, the text mentions, it talks about how when we tap into that, it literally fuels us.
Right, like it gives us energy.
Yeah, it gives us
Keep after.
direction,
Well,
joy even, in a way that,
it's a different kind of fuel. Yeah. It's not the kind you get from chasing after material things or achievements. It's a deeper, more sustainable kind of fuel that comes from knowing you're living in alignment with your true purpose.
so, I mean, how would you even describe that? Like if somebody was like, okay, I want to know what that feels like.
It's hard to put into words, but I think it's a sense of peace, of knowing you're on the right track, even when things are tough. It's a feeling of being connected to something bigger than yourself, of being part of something that really matters.
I like that. Okay. So let's get into these 4 verbs that the text brings up.
Okay.
Prosper, multiply, create, and serve.
Right.
Now, when I first read that, I thought, wait, is this like a checklist? Like, are these the specific things that God wants us all to do? What do you think?
It's easy to read it that way, right? Like
Yeah.
God's got this specific plan for each of us, and it involves doing these four things. But I think it's more nuanced than that. I see these verbs more as like broad categories of purpose, invitations to explore different ways we can live out God's plan for our lives.
Okay, I like that. So prosper, for example, doesn't necessarily mean like, financial wealth.
Exactly. It could be that for some people, but it could also mean prospering in your relationships, in your health, in your spiritual life. It's about flourishing in all areas of your life, not just financially.
Right. And multiplying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess that could be a lot of different things too. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, having a lot of children.
No, not at all. It could be about multiplying your talents, your resources, your love, your impact on the world. It's
Mm.
about using what you have to make a positive difference, to create a ripple effect of good.
Okay. And then creating, I mean, that's pretty broad too.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Creating could mean so many things. It could be about creating art, music, writing. It could be about building a business, raising a family, coming up with solutions to problems. It's about bringing something new and valuable into the world, using your unique gifts and talents to make the world a better place.
And then, of course, serving. I mean, I feel like that goes hand in hand with all of these.
Definitely. In a way, all of these verbs are about serving in some way. Whether you're prospering, multiplying, or creating, it's all about using your gifts to make a positive impact on the world, to serve God and others.
What I'm realizing is that these verbs, they're not mutually exclusive.
Right.
You could be creating a business
Mhm.
that prospers financially and also serves a need in your community.
Exactly. They can all work together, and they often do. You might be multiplying your talents by teaching others, which also involves creating a learning environment and serving those you're teaching.
So I guess, like you said, it's not a checklist.
Right. It's not about checking off boxes.
Right.
It's about finding a way to integrate these different aspects of purpose into your life in a way that feels authentic and meaningful to you.
Okay. So I think that's really good. So let's recap a little bit here.
Okay.
If you're listening and maybe you're feeling a little overwhelmed, or you're just thinking, okay, where do I even begin with all this? Here's what I want you to remember. First, remember that even when things are tough, even when you feel lost or uncertain, even in your own personal exile, so to speak, there is a plan for you. There's a purpose that ultimately leads to hope and a future.
And remember that you're not alone in this. God is with you, guiding you, even when you don't feel it.
And second, this Kingdom SoulFuel thing.
Yeah.
It's real, it's powerful, and it's available to you too. It's not just for, saints or mystics.
Exactly. It's for everyone. It's for anyone who's willing to seek it, to align their life with a purpose that's bigger than themselves.
And third, don't get hung up on specific outcomes or feeling like you have to check off certain boxes.
Right.
Look at those four verbs: prosper, multiply, create, serve. And just ask yourself, where am I already living these out in my life? Where are the opportunities for me to do more of that?
That's a great place to start. And as you start to pay attention to those things, to those areas where you're already living out your purpose, you might be surprised at how much Kingdom Soul Fuel you're already generating.
And it might just inspire you to do even more.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, any final thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I have a question for all of you listening.
Hit me.
If this Kingdom Soul Fuel is like a fire that needs to be stoked, what's one small action, one choice you can make this week to add fuel to that fire? Maybe it's saying yes to a volunteer opportunity. Maybe it's finally starting that creative project you've been putting off.
Right.
Maybe it's just spending more time in prayer or meditation, connecting with that source of purpose and inspiration. Whatever it is, make it a conscious choice to align your life, even in a small way, with that greater purpose.
Wow, I love that. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, and we hope it's given you some food for thought.
Absolutely.
And until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep that Kingdom Soul Fuel burning bright.
Yes.